Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to Jamaica Live. This is your news update with me, Odera. And on today's very special Wednesday episode, I have two guests. We have Rondine Da Costa, all the way from Jamaica. Welcome, Rondine. And
Thank
of
you,
course,
Darren.
we have Madison from our last two shows. Welcome, Madison.
Thank you.
So first of all, before I go into our topics, Rondine, would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers? I'm sure they recognize your face from somewhere, but please let them know who exactly you are.
Well, as you said, name is Rondine Da Costa. I'm a live contributor to Jamaica Live and a follower and a avid fan of Jamaica Live and Jamaica. I'm just here trying to do my part in trying to expose Jamaica to the world and to those who were here but now have migrated, and taken root overseas. We want to bring them back and let them know that Jamaica is still very fun, still very nice, and the people are wonderful. So that's why I'm here.
And you're doing a wonderful job. We see everything you're doing all the way from Jamaica. And of course, we're very jealous because I can see that the weather is always warm.
Yes.
You guys, it's beautiful, but you're doing amazing. So,
Thank you.
honor of our very special guest, Rondine, I'm going to ask you to kind of lead the discussion on my very first topic. My very first topic for this evening is about the NIDS system. So that's the National Identification System.
Yes.
Which was just passed as a law, as a bill. And there's a lot of controversy surrounding it. The opposition party is heavily against it, and they're saying that they will not even stop if it has to be taken, if legal action has to be taken against this over a particular portion of the bill that states that Jamaicans without the card would not be given essential services. So, Rondine, please tell me more about this.
All right. Well, as you said, it's a national identification system, whereas the government is now embarking on the process of bringing every Jamaican under one ID system. What that means is that all information regarding each individual, adults or child, will be captured under this system. That is your fingerprint, your toe print, your palm print, your footprint, your iris, your DNA, where you live, work. Every single information will be captured under this one ID system. Now, the thing about it is that this system will become mandatory. It won't be optional. So you won't have the opportunity to say, okay, hey, no, I don't want to be under the system, because currently we have the TRN and we have the National Voters ID system, but that is optional. If you choose to get enumerated and have your identification card, you can do that. If you choose not to, then it's your choice. With this system, it is not a choice. You'll be either fined 100,000 each time, or you'll be imprisoned if you don't enroll under the system, and also the fact that if you don't have the card, then you can't access any government service. For example, schooling, you can't access, health facilities you won't be able to access, and they're trying to get some private sectors on the whole program as well, that you can't do business with any of these persons if you don't have the card. So the controversy is that we as Jamaica, we don't know much in terms of all the clauses. I've just got I got a document with the legislation recently to go through. It's a very long legislation. They have amendments on it. Just last week, Friday, both houses, the opposition and the government, were in dialogue in terms of the amendments that they made. And the government want to push it really quickly, but the opposition is saying that, listen, they don't know as much, and if they're the opposition who have read the document and they don't are not fully aware of it, imagine ordinary Jamaican citizens. Because I knew it was coming, but the vastness of it I was unaware of until I read this document. So reading this document, and I mean, I'm not a lawyer, and the verbiage in it is very complex and worded in such a way that the layman will not be able to just read it and understand it off the bat. you'd have to go through the debate and get an understanding of it. So they are of the take that more Jamaicans need to be educated, more discussion need to be had. And why is it that it has to be mandatory? Why is it that if I don't have this card, I can't access certain services? Why I'll be fined or why I'll be jailed? So that is the great controversy.
So let me ask you, what you described, it sounds like they're trying to implement something like Social Security, which is what they have here in the US. And Social Security usually comes with the same kind of benefits. You can't work without Social Security. You can't go to school. There are different levels to which Social Security sounds similar. Now, the government, what is the government saying would be the advantages of putting this system in place?
Well, the advantages is one. Well, the advantage of most of it is to the government, and in terms of, okay, how do we control crime? As you know, Jamaica is known a lot for the negativity of scamming, where persons, they use other people to really, scam these people and get their money. So they're saying that, okay, hey, if it is that everybody can be identified, everybody can be logged, then that will help to reduce the crime. For example, criminals migrating from one location to another, you have all these information about them. If they want to access a medical service, they have to put in this ID. You'll know that, okay, this person is originally from this location. This is known as a crime haven. They know this location. Do they have any criminal record? Just a whole slew of things in terms of really reducing crime. You mentioned the Social Security. I'm not too averse with the Social Security number in the US. Is that mandatory in order to access certain services in the US?
Well, it's mandatory to get like healthcare, to get a job. I won't say they don't deny people healthcare if you don't have a Social Security, of course, because I know many people from my country come here to give birth, and if there's an emergency, they're going to treat them. But I'm just saying, if I'm just trying to understand if they're trying to set up something similar, if that's why they're making it mandatory. Because it's mandatory that every U.S. citizen has one, because it's like once you get your passport, once you're born in the U.S., you get one. Once you get your American passport, if you naturalize, you get a Social Security. So that's why I'm asking, is the mandatory nature as a result of anything shady, or just because they're trying to mirror it after systems they've seen elsewhere?
I would think that yes, they're trying to mirror it from the US, because we do take a lot of the US example, and we try to follow suit. They are positive to the system, we won't say no. But our concern is, one, the information dissemination is limited. And there's so many other areas to look at. For example, how will this data be secured? Where will this data be secured at? I mean, who have authority to access this information? Because with corruption, and as if you can do the index in terms of how high Jamaica is on the corruption level in terms of government officials and the whole police force, you realize that it is still very rampant. Now, how do I gain, or how do I protect against this person information being disseminated to the public? Do we have these kind of cyber laws, these kind of cyber security to prevent any hacking? It's just a whole slew of thoughts and concerns that the government have not really addressed in terms of protecting that data, because I do actually see benefits in terms with it, but to put it out and make it mandatory off the bat, you denying people certain privileges based on the fact that they don't have it, is kind of drastic. So I think
the research I did into this, it stated the argument against the opposition's reservations on it stated that it's not there's no slated period of time. They did come out to say that it's not immediately that you won't be able to receive these healthcare services. They said that it's after a particular amount of time. And that was part of it that the opposition did find tricky, because they didn't state exactly after how long.
Right.
That would. So it seems like they can impose it on whoever
Yeah,
they
like,
feel like and
exactly.
whenever they feel like.
Okay, so the
Right.
question I have, Rondine, who is really pushing this agenda? Because I am a Jamaican, know that we don't just come up with this kind of things and push it without some form of any agenda. Do you think there's an agenda behind this?
From examining it, and you can probably tie it with the SOZO in terms of the zones of special operations, where they will cordon off certain areas, and they will, that area is now under the a mini state of emergency, where certain rights are kind of suspended so that they can keep crime or get crime under control. I think with um, so many pressures in terms of the IMF, we have an IMF loan in terms of really we need to keep
Yes.
right certain payments and what we need to do. One of that is, or one of the main reasons, one of the main things that is preventing us from really improving on our domestic product in terms of our production, investments, and really getting our main product or main generating, foreign exchange generator, which is tourism, off the ground, is crime. So the government now being in power for going on to 3-4 years now, decide, okay, they need to take some drastic approach because crime has really gotten out of hand. So I think the main agenda for them that I can see is, one, how do they get crime under control? Be it at probably the expense of those who are innocent, those who are, law-abiding citizens.
But I'm thinking
that one is there.
Toe print, iris, and a lot of other stuff, which honestly I've not seen any country I've been using yet. I think there's some argument that some other countries has refused this particular kind of ID.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know something about that? Or
Yeah, a bunch of companies a bunch of countries have refused a similar type of ID because they were uncomfortable with the DNA that is supposed to be stored on these cards, and many people around the world are very tense when there's an issue with ID and biometrics, because if it gets in the wrong hands, now if you have a system that already has a lot of cybercrime on record, when you make a whole card that has everyone's biometrics, it's also riskier.
Very, very risky.
Because like everything else, you can lose your ID. So what happens if that ID gets in the wrong hands?
And the thing is, yes.
No, I was saying, as Adara said, if that ID card gets in the wrong hand, basically you've lost your identity. That's now somebody can assume your identity down to your DNA. So, and then as I said, Jamaica is not known to have this great level of cybersecurity to protect your data in such a way that, hey, we're safe, we give you everything, and then we can just sleep well knowing that it's in good hands. And it takes great effort to really get that information out into the public in the wrong hands, but we're not at that level.
No, and I think I would say that we should actually develop a system whereby we're more computerized literate.
Right.
Exactly.
I agree.
Before and secure. Before we can even get in anything like this, because Jamaica doesn't have good infrastructure, as you and I talked about recently. A lot of companies, they're not even fully computerized. The government system is not even fully computerized. So how are you going to implement such? This is very sensitive documents. What do you guys think?
It actually reminds me of a situation in Nigeria. They tried to make the whole country a cashless society, meaning that everybody was to use their card to pay for things. Now, this is basically, we like to fool ourselves in Nigeria that we're urban, but this is basically a rural country. Aside from the two major cities, the capital and the economic capital, nobody else is really using their card for anything. You're not going to go to the market when this lady only has a little stool and give her your card to pay for things. And it really choked up a lot of things in society. Many people were frustrated because at the end of the day, not even that people are not computer literate, people are illiterate, basically. Yeah. So how do they even want to go to the bank to open up a card, to open up an account, to get a card? The government implemented it immediately. There was no time. And of course, my country is not as aware as yours. So the bill passed and it was into circulation. And it was until they reached all the problems that they realized cashless is not the way. And they started a phasing of the cashless society. But then you still can't do that because you still have market women that never went to school, that are selling their tomatoes by the roadside, that are not going to get a POS just because you want to buy like $1 worth of tomatoes. It makes no sense. So I understand what you're saying completely.
Honestly, Edora, I think we have the same exact thing. Would you agree, Rondine?
No,
people are uneducated. Some people can't even use Facebook. They're illiterate.
Illiterate, exactly. And people, you're not putting into consideration these people that can barely read, and then you're telling them to depend on technology that they're not yet able to comprehend. That's quite unfair. It's quite unfair. And if you're not setting programs in place to educate the people, to enlighten them, have public discussions, and that's how things in developed countries, that's how laws are brought into implementation. They hold town halls, they hold programs that you sensitize the people on what is coming so that the people are prepared in their mind for this. And
I'm going to say I'm very disappointed in Andrew Holness with this one. I'm going to say I like him. I like that it seems he's one of the first politicians that I have known about doesn't have any gangs behind him. And I respect and appreciate that because that, for me, says, okay, he's trying to move the country forward out of criminal elements and criminal activity. However, this in particular, let me say, Mr. Holness, you have to step back a bit. Because I'm just going to give one quick example. I am trying to employ people from Jamaica to work on Jamaica Live. And a lot of the people who are sending their resume, I can see that they're not educated enough. They don't even answer the simple questions that was asked of them. So if you have young people who doesn't even know how to fill a resume, to respond to questions. It clearly says on the application, if you do not answer these questions, your resume will not be looked at. And a lot of people send me their resume without answering the questions. And I'm like, are you kidding me? These are young people. We're talking about young people who some of them say they go to University of the West Indies. And I'm like, what are they teaching you? They don't know nothing. So how are you going to implement a system like this in a country where people don't know nothing? I don't understand. Rondine, what do you think?
No, I absolutely agree with you. Our education level is so clustered in a very small, minute percentage of the population. Jamaica is mostly very rural. We have 3 cities, Kingston, Ocho now, which is very small, and Montego Bay. They're Spanish town, and they're trying now to bring Mandeville into a city. But compared to the entire of Jamaica, it's pretty small. We have 4 universities, which is packed. But for the majority, or for the most part, is a lot of Jamaicans are not very exposed to technology and the wider higher education level. So even though they will have a base knowledge, to take that further, they don't have the knowledge to go any further. So the getting the education level up and disseminating information in an effective way is key. But we don't know. We don't know exactly what the government is up to. We don't know most of the bills that are passed. If it's not for the educated few, it's not for the effect to the educated few, then we start disseminating it to others, then they'll understand and realize that, hey, there's something going on. How do we get a part of it? How do we, you know?
I'm super emotional. I feel like I want to cry because I believed, I kind of think, you know, believe in Andrew Holness, and I think, okay, it seems like he's doing good, but I think he's allowing the IMF and understand, let's call a spade, because this is what Jamaica Live is about. We're here to be honest. We're here to bring the information to the people. This agenda with the vaccine, the HPV vaccine, all these ID cards, they're pushing these things in our small island because they know we can't say no. And I want to cry right now because if we say no, then they're going to take stuff away from us. They're going to say we didn't do good with the IMF. We didn't pass the IMF. Honestly, I'm really upset about this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I can see that you really do care.
That's so interesting that you mentioned the IMF basically being in charge. So there was an issue with one of our past presidents where in Nigeria, we refer to this incident as he basically sold Nigeria. That's how they call, and it was with the IMF as well. The IMF brought a deal that basically started the devaluation of our currency.
Right. And that's exactly what's happening now in Jamaica, because the IMF came on when the Jamaican dollar was about 118 to 1 US. And they said that it was the Jamaican dollar was grossly overvalued compared to that. Right now it's 128, 129. And they're still saying that further devaluation is needed in order to get it on par.
Oh my God!
So yeah, so the IMF
That's almost the same thing that happened when Nigeria began its downward spiral.
Right.
And you know what? I see a lot of people in Jamaica who doesn't understand the IMF.
Right.
The IMF is a private entity. Private entity is there to make money.
And push their own agenda.
Right.
Put their own agenda.
Exactly.
And
That's
people
exactly
in Jamaica think, yeah, the IMF this. I'm really upset about this.
To give an example, because the IMF now is saying that the public sector wages are frozen. There's no increase. But yet, taxes have to be increased in order to fill that gap in the budget. So your taxes are increased, but you can't get any increase. Inflation is increasing, but you can't get any increase on your salary. So basically, that dollar that you got today is worth 60 cents tomorrow, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to sit back and just see how you can now best use 60 cents that you could do a dollar with and survive. So as Adira said, that they push their agenda quite a bit at a time. They do.
All right, Rondine, this was a very emotional.
Yes, I'm quite interested.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us. We enjoyed having you. You're officially our Jamaican correspondent, and we'd love to have you back on the show another day.
Rondine, we really want you to come back to give, perspective, because you are very knowledgeable, very educated, you're very passionate, and that's one of the reasons why I love working with you. I want Adora as well. I mean, I want Jamaica Live to be surrounded. We want Jamaica Live to be surrounded with people who care, who are passionate, who love our country and want to see things better. And Rondine, you protect that. every sense of the word. And thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye there.
Bye. Nice.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was Rondine, and that was a very wonderful conversation with him. And then there were two. Moving on to my next and very spicy topic for today. There has been some military action in Zimbabwe. Now, it has all the makings as an African, as a Nigerian, that basically had our whole history is coups since independence. I can spot a coup from a mile away. It has all the workings of a coup. The military took over, and by this morning, they were on TV calming the people down and trying to tell them that it was not a coup. Trying to tell them that it was not a coup, and the president and his wife are under house arrest for their safety. Now, the chief of staff for logistics came on. This picture keeps changing. Came online and came on TV, took over the airwaves, came on TV and said that they were conducting some military activity to take out the corrupt people that are around the president. Now, what is interesting about this topic is that last week, President Mugabe fired his vice president, and there have been rumors that he did that so he could install his wife. So rather than him running in the next election, his wife can become president. They fired the vice president, Emerson. Let me not bite my tongue trying to pronounce his name, but they fired Vice President Emerson on the guise that he was not loyal and he was planning a coup within government. So it's very interesting that a week after a coup would occur. Madison, what do you think about the situation?
Yeah, this is a very big topic because Mugabe is like 95.
He's 92.
92. And how long he's been ruling Zimbabwe?
He's been ruling Zimbabwe, I think 30 years.
From 1980 or something.
Yeah,
I mean, really
30,
long.
yeah.
I mean, look, maybe like 40 years.
Yeah, I think it's 30. No, it should be about 30 years. He's been a president since they got their independence, basically.
Okay, so you cannot have one person ruling for so long. And if he intended to put his wife, then that's a dictatorship. You
Definitely.
know what I mean? So, and especially we know that Zimbabwe a lot of issues. I know the issues of Zimbabwe are based on the fact that Mugabe has sent away the white people out of Zimbabwe. So basically he's under a lot of pressure from the Europeans, embargo. So a lot of the problems in Zimbabwe are not solely based on what he is doing. It has to do with the embargo and the pressure from the West, because he's sending away the white farmers and the redistribution of land in Africa.
Definitely.
I will say that, you know, Africa belongs to everybody, but you cannot have a system whereby a small minority of the people are owning everything when those people from that country doesn't own anything. Yes. So I think he did the right thing when he did some redistribution of land. I think I don't know, maybe it could have done it in a different way that it didn't affect so many people. But again, you cannot have a minority of people owning so many lands and the majority doesn't own anything. So Zimbabwe is under pressure because of that. I know you want to say something.
Yeah, let me piggyback off what you said. So when I was doing my research into this, they said that the military has not been they haven't been too happy with the way he's conducting things. Because
do we have a picture of the military? I think we have a picture of the military. They're taking over Zimbabwe. I think we do. Anyways.
Yeah, so the military has they said that they've not been reports coming out of Zimbabwe say that the military has not been completely happy with the way Mugabe has been running the country, but they have been reluctant to take action against him because at the end of the day they see him as a fellow comrade for getting them out of that situation where getting them out of Rhodesia, basically, you know, and so they feel kind of a loyalty for him. At the same time, respect. They don't want to disrespect him, but this Vice President Emerson that he fired last week is the second vice president that he's firing.
Yeah,
in recent times, and the people of Zimbabwe were not excited that he's actually flouting the idea of putting Grace Mugabe in office because apparently if their problem with Mugabe is that he's old and inactive, their problem with Grace Mugabe is that she is
Lamar,
very active.
Lamar says the first you heard me live. Thank you so much. You want to put hi Lamar, you want to put her up? Yes. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay. Yes.
So yeah, if their problem, Grace Mugabe has proven to be very hard-handed and comes with a lot of controversy. As you know, many African politicians are racked with this controversy of corruption and authoritarianism, borderline dictatorial, but authoritarian in nature. And she recently had an issue where she attacked a South African model for, according to her, trying to make moves at her husband. And she used her international immunity to get out of that situation. And pictures that surfaced from that show that that girl was very badly injured. And that just gives you some insight on the nature of the person that is trying to get her political ambition. She has heavy political ambition. She's the leader of the women's faction of her party.
Mugabe? You're talking
yes.
about Grace Mugabe. Okay.
Grace Mugabe, yes. So many people there's been an uproar that that he's even trying to make her vice president, and a bigger uproar because of course they know if she's vice president, her next sights would be on the presidency.
Okay. Well, you know, I mean, as I said, you cannot have dictatorship in any country. You can't have Mugabe passing on his leadership to his wife. I'm totally against that. However, again, Zimbabwe are suffering because of the land redistribution. But I think he should give over leadership to somebody else. What do you think?
Yeah, I believe it's time. Now, like I said, that this has all the workings of what we as Africans have been used to in our history. We're used to having presidents that don't want to leave because of the power that it gives them, because they just become power drunk and they're not ready to release that power. And as you know, Africa is very rich in whatever resources are found on that land in that particular nation. So it's a lot of money that you're asking them to give over, and they're not ready to do that. So we say that we want to be a democracy, especially for me. I'm coming from the angle that we know the people that fought for independence back in the day from our colonial masters. And the reason why we decided to spring up and fight for independence was because things were not going fairly. And we opted for a democratic system because we want fairness. So why then do we have these African leaders that decide to be independent colonial masters? Basically, you know, they just want to do the same thing that we got ourselves out of.
You know, I think about this. I said to myself, people like Mugabe and Putin, Vladimir Putin, the reason why they're holding so much to power. They're afraid that their land will become taken over by the Western society. So that's my thought process. I'm thinking, okay, they're really holding on because they're afraid that the other person is going to give over their land to the Western powers who they literally despise so much. What do you think?
I can't speak for Putin, but I can speak for Mugabe, and I know that he cannot stand anybody that was related to the colonial master. He does not like them, and he does not mince words about liking them. So if that's a very interesting angle that I've not considered before. So if that's the angle that he's coming from, then you can understand why he has decided to stay in office for 30 years. Because
maybe I would have done the same thing.
You know, like, because he doesn't want to see them come back, and because he was the one that kind of led that crusade to send them away, he probably has gotten so...
I would die before this happened again.
Exactly. And that's why maybe I feel like, now that you've said that, I feel like he wants to die in office so he can see a Zimbabwe that he created. He doesn't want to see a Zimbabwe that somebody let go haywire. He wants to make sure that the Zimbabwe he created is what he sees when he dies, and he's doing exactly that.
And I mean, Vladimir Putin become president twice of Russia.
Yeah.
Come on, who does that? There's a reason for that. Because if like, okay, I'm the person who alone can do this.
Is that it? You're talking about Putin being president twice. In my country, we've had military heads of states from former coups. Now, these were bloody coups. These were illegal coups. They have run for presidency under the democratic system. Like, so our president right now was a head of state through a military coup back in 1977.
Okay. Can I ask you, why do you think African countries are prone to dictatorship? I mean, come on.
let me tell you why. Because at the end of the day, we're used to tribal systems where there's a head and there's a king, there's a queen, there are chiefs. We're used to that. Democracy is not in African nature.
It's not in African DNA.
Not African DNA in terms of ruling system. Now, within African tribes, you can find democratic laws within how the authority makes decisions, but generally across the board, it usually is. It usually is an authoritarian system. You have a king, you have a queen, you have a chief, you have an oba. You have one person in charge with the little chiefs, and everybody takes, orders from that person. So it's so easy for Africans to fall back in that, even after they've been exposed to the idea of democracy.
Well, you know what, Adira, I am so glad to have you here. I want you to know this. I really want you to know this, because you are very knowledgeable of your African culture, and this is a platform where we really want to inform the world. And this, what you just said, is so imperative, because a lot of people around the world forget that Africa is that's where the kingship
started from. Yeah,
Europeans learn about kings and queens and authoritarian from Africa and India and all those places. Maybe the Indians learned it from the Africans. You know what I mean? So that is, you're right, in the DNA, it's in the tradition. Africans are used to a leader a master. If you watch all the movies, yes, master, everybody's bowing to each other.
Exactly, and they're used to following. So when you bring this idea of democracy, they're docile people. The people that are not generally inclined to be in any position of authority tend to be docile. So you have a whole. So while let me take me for example. While I became this way as a result of education and exposure, you know. But you have majority of Nigerians and Africans across the board that are still stuck in their traditional ways. So no matter how much you try to expose them to democracy and all, they still will not be able to comprehend it the way I would. Yeah. So that's why you see that across the board, Africans are generally docile and don't mind. You don't see them having upheavals and protests and unrest like you see in Jamaica or Venezuela.
I think you do have those, but it's a lot of tribes killing each other. You're right. It's not for the right thing.
Not for the right reasons. You won't see an African stand up and protest until recently that, you know, Nigerians do it, and you find it in Kenya after their elections. But you by themselves, if you leave them be and no intellectual joins in their conversation, you won't see Africans stand up and protest and say, hey, this is wrong. This is a bad thing.
You know what, Odora? I'm going to kind of go away a little bit from Mugabe. We in the West always wonder, why did a small group of white people from Europe take the whole of Africa? But what you just explained is that what it is. So when these white people came, they see them as gods and leaders. So it was easy for them to be docile and follow.
Exactly.
Do you agree with that?
Of course, I definitely agree. Now, it was easy. I'm going to give you the example of Nigeria, of how Nigeria was ruled pre-independence. Before we became what is now called Nigeria, we were divided into the North and the South protectorate, right? And this was when the British were ruling us. And the reason why we were divided into the North and South was because the way that they were ruling us differed in both sections. And it's going to show the different kinds of Africans that you have. In the North, they were already on that authoritarian. They had a leader, you know, they had a king. They had a king that they listen to. They take orders from. Whatever he says is law, and that goes. And they don't complain because they're happy to be living. So the British were able to just speak with the king, speak with the chiefs, and impose their laws without having any contact with the people. Mm. In the South, though, they had people that were more inquisitive, that were ready to challenge more, that were ready to fight more. So what you had were officers.
I think you and I got some of that DNA. I think we're from the same bloodline, the same tribe, God. Maybe if you and I do some DNA tests, we found out we're from the same bloody tribe. Because
honestly, the people in the South, they were, and there are documents on this, Madison. I'm telling you, there are British documents all the way back to the dating back to the 1800s, that said that the people in the South were stubborn to rule. It was difficult to control them. So that was where, and that's why
you from the South, girl.
I'm from the South. I am from the South, and that's why you have that many slaves came from the South because they had to overpower them. Many slaves came from that region of West Africa that is now southern Nigeria. Many of them. In fact, they say majority of the slave trade came from that region. So many Black people will trace themselves back to that area.
Those were the cantankerous slaves and the tribes, and they wanted to get rid of them because they were trouble.
Exactly, and that was how the white man was able to take control, because they used force there, and that was how they were able to.
The docile ones to help to fight, control the cantankerous ones like myself and you, because we're intellectually cantankerous.
And, and let me explain that the way that they started ruling, the way that they got control of Nigeria, when they handed over independence, it's almost as if they preferred to hand it over to those in the north to make sure that they would still. So that's the current controversy that Nigeria is in right now. My country is calling for a restructuring because many people feel that elements of when the colonial master was around is in the way our government is being run today. Because it seems like it's one tribe, one set of people that are in charge, and they don't want to release the reins to anyone else except themselves.
Yeah. Can we remind people that they can call?
Yes, let me remind you that you can call into our show and drop a comment, add to the conversation, anything that you want to say. We are having a very heated debate. We would love to hear from anybody else that is that's watching us. Make sure you call the number 347-343-1989. Send a text, send a message, or drop a comment here and join in the conversation. On that note, I shall be moving to our next topic. Now, this is a very interesting topic because it has sparked more conversation in the race debate here in the U.S. And it has been getting a lot of media attention. There is actually a rally. Cardi B actually posted information about a rally in Philly to protest Meek Mill's prison sentence. Now, for those that don't know, I'm going to give you a brief background to this situation. Meek Mill was he was in jail a while ago for some whatever crime he committed whenever. And for the past few years, he's been on probation. Because of that, because of course he's making his music and he was allowed to not be in jail. Now, the judge in charge of his case cited the three examples for how he violated his probation. And it was, he did a wheelie. He was on a motorcycle. He did a wheelie here in New York, in Harlem. And they said, that was wrong. He was at an airport and he was actually trying to separate a fight, but got in the middle of it. And the police did, when everybody was arrested, the police did know that he was doing the right thing at that time. Then the third thing is that he was found to be hooked on drugs. Now, what happened was he had surgery and he was hooked on his pain medicines, and he checked himself into rehab and told the court exactly why. So many people don't believe that this is enough for him to be sentenced to 2 to 4 years in jail for violating probation, because according to them, their white counterparts get linear sentences for larger crimes, and this is even just only a probation, so he shouldn't be sentenced so harshly. What people do not know is that he was involved in an altercation. Now, this is Safari here. He was involved with an altercation with Safari sometime this year or this year.
This year, yes.
Yeah, sometime this year. And he had basically Safari came out to say that Meek Mill had his crew and him jump him, and they got into a big fight. And so what people are arguing is that the judge may not have had proper reports that he violated his bail, but maybe she's on the entertainment blogs looking at videos. Like, these are screenshots from the video of him fighting with Safari.
Well, okay, so let's say this. He wasn't fighting. Okay, so let people know who Safari is.
Safari is Nicki Minaj's ex. Now, this is what they have in common. They both dated Nicki Minaj, and when Meek Mill was dating Nicki Minaj, he did badmouth Safari quite a bit.
Yes. So basically, Safari was with Nicki, and Safari is either was born in Jamaica or he's Jamaican parentage, or he's grew up in Jamaica. He's identified as Jamaican. So Safari is Jamaican. So Nikki, you know, is with Safari for more than 10 years, and then she leaves Safari. She left Safari, and then she ended up with Meek Mill. So of course they have some kind of bad conflict going on. But let's be clear: Meek Mill didn't physically attack Safari, but he came out of a vehicle, and his crew came out of the vehicle, and then his crew, as you can see, was attacking Meek Mill, Safari and his friend. So Meek Mill friend attacked Safari, they run him down, they beat him up, they beat up Safari friends, and to be honest, I saw that when it came out, and I was thinking to myself, isn't this dude not on probation? What, is he silly or something? I was thinking that, and a lot of the people on social media was thinking that as well. And I actually see people saying, he's going to jail for this. Seriously, people have predicted this. So even now that he got this time, people are saying, you're right, maybe the judge was watching these things and realized that he's not behaving himself. He's not behaving himself. Nevertheless, is this right for him to get so much time?
Is this a fair sentencing? Now, many people have been, of course, immediately this happened, everybody's go-to question was, oh, who's the judge? And it's very interesting to know that this is a judge that has been handling his case since 2008 and has been particularly harsh with him. And she is a Black judge. So
she's teaching this boy a lesson. She's like, boy, your mama didn't do a good job, so I'm going to teach you a lesson. So she's not white.
She's not. So many people have been wondering why the woman is being so heavy-handed, and they have brought up they even said there's a report I said that they said the FBI is actually investigating this lady now because his lawyer cited that they have had some issues in the past with the judge being, you know, weird. So the report I read was that there was a court date they had that she asked him to remake a Nas song and shout her out while in court.
You know what? I am thinking, because there's a lot of pressure from the celebrities, because I'm sure you know that, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, there are like videos going around saying free Meek Mill, and
they're having a protest. So they had a protest yesterday in Philly.
Yeah. So basically there's a lot going on.
Many celebrities are talking about it. There is this political analyst, legal analyst from CNN that was on Wendy Williams talking about this issue, and he said the same thing, that it's so heavy-handed for just breaking violating your probation. And but people brought up other scenarios where there were white people in question that had lenient sentences. So they brought up the college kid that raped a girl that got 6 months in jail and only ended up serving 3 months.
Yeah, but honestly, can I be biased? I never normally bias, but I think I do have bias in me, and I'm going to be very honest about it. Oh God, I'm actually going to say this. Maybe if she was a white judge, I would say it's racism or something. But I think this woman just saying, this boy, he has a lot of money. He works for his money. He does his music or whatever, but he's not behaving himself. So I'm going to teach him a lesson. What do you think about that?
I think it's very
it's personal, and it's wrong for her to put our personal feelings in doing what she's doing. But let's face it, a lot of the American justice system is based on the judge's personal feelings. Do you see
exactly.
not see that?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, definitely, I see that. I do believe that she probably is feeling kind of personal about the situation, because in her mind she's saying, this is another young black boy that could be my son that is not behaving well, and if his time in jail previously did not teach him to be on the streets and be thankful for that privilege and conduct yourself in an orderly manner, then maybe you should go back inside and come out again and see if you've learned your lesson that way. So I do see that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But
it's wrong, but I'm thinking that's where she's coming from. I mean, I can't speak for her,
honestly, but that makes more sense. And I just feel that if it's possible, if she's not violating any law by giving him up to 2 to 4 years, then if it's there in the law that you can get up to 2 to 4 years, then hey, unfortunately, that's what he got. Okay, Rondine has a question. Go, Rondine. Yes. Okay. Why should he be released and not in prison and not be in prison just because he's rich and famous? Shouldn't he be treated as ordinary people are? Very true. And I'm gonna repeat, like I said, Rondine, they said that that they feel it's a race it's the injustice in the judicial system that is affecting Rondine, because white counterparts get more lenient sentences. So yeah, he's rich and famous, but we've seen that rich and famous people do get lenient treatment when they violate their probation.
White people less time.
They give white people less time, and then of course they do give celebrities more lenient. So last year Rick Ross was caught with some drugs, and they put a wrist bracelet. He was under house arrest, and he had an ankle bracelet on him, so he couldn't leave his house for a very long time. He was under house arrest. That was for violating his probation. That he was, I can't remember how many months they put him under house arrest with the ankle bracelet, but he was not allowed to leave his house. You know, that was adequate enough punishment for a rich and famous person.
Yeah, and I think, you know, towards that, what Rondine is saying, I think that's what a lot of people say. They're saying because he's rich and famous, that's why he's been punished so harshly.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
But I disagree with that. I think the judge is taking this bloody personal.
Way too personal. Way too personal.
She's like, you know what, this boy has a lot of money. You know, he's brought himself out of the ghettos of Philly or whatever. Behave yourself, and I'm going to teach you a lesson. I think that's what she's doing, I think.
Honestly, before we round up, I just think I should mention, I don't know how you must feel about this topic, Madison, but I know for a fact that I'm tired of hearing about shootings in America. Yeah. I have to say on behalf of Jamaica Live that our hearts do go out to those that lost their lives yesterday in California. Another one, Madison, another one. This man, so reports just came out actually 2 hours ago that this happened yesterday. He had a fight. His mom said he had a fight with his neighbors. Then he went to a school and started shooting at the building. He was trying to get in, but thank goodness he couldn't get into the school. So he killed 4 people. He just went in his car after he couldn't get in the school. He went in his car and was driving and just started shooting at random. And he managed to kill 4 people and injure 11, including children. And it's just crazy. So a couple hours ago, the police released reports that they went to his house and they found that he had killed his wife before leaving. So definitely this is not a man that was stable, because of course he was apprehended by the cops and shot dead. So this is another shooter that we cannot speak to and ask why. And I believe that's
too much guns.
It's too much guns. It's really too much guns. I believe the U.S., the Congress needs to have a larger discussion about this, because now it's literally every week we hear about someone being gunned down.
I know Americans always say, oh, they throw acid in Britain and knives and whatever. And there's some, you know, there's an argument for that. But come on, you don't have mass amount of people being killed and murdered. And it's the same gun violence is affecting Jamaica. Where do you think the guns in Jamaica coming from? Right here in the United States. So I mean, they need to be curtailed. These guns, too much bloody guns. We need to.
And obviously, everything is about corporations, people making money. People just want to keep making their money on the blood of human beings. I don't know how anybody can sleep, can have a heart or a conscience thinking that way.
Girl, these people sleep like baby because they have money. Because money is their God. They may try to tell you, oh, I love God, I pray to God, but money is their God. And they will take your bloody eyes out for money. So take that.
Crazy. So our heart goes out to those people. Madison, thank you so much for joining me today. Rondine, if you're still watching, thank you. We loved having you on. Can't wait to have you back here yet again. Madison, would you like to tell the viewers bye-bye?
Thank you so much, guys. And we want to bring up again a legendary AT. Yes, Monday she was on the show, and
yes,
we have some technical difficulties, and we figured it out today, don't you think?
Yeah, we figured it out
today. So I'm happy that we sorted out. And Rondine, thank you so much. You came on, you helped us, figured it out, but also you contributed greatly to a very sensitive topic that made me cry, because even though I'm not living in Jamaica, I love Jamaica. I am patriotic about my country, and that's why Jamaica Live is here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Thank you.